And luckily, I'd already been so transparent with the seller, and he
Mm-hmm.
knows me, likes me, trusts me. And since I'd already been transparent and upfront with him, it wasn't a surprise when I ended up walking away with, I think $40,000, $45,000 after paying closing costs, real estate commissions, and some of the other concessions that were in there.
Riley, thank you for being with us here. One of my faves, got the sun on his face and the mountains in the background. We can't see those, but I want to thank you for taking a few minutes here and just closed the deal, and it was a pretty good one. And I just wanted to kind of walk through that, ask you a few questions, and kind of get the juicy goods behind the
Yeah,
scenes. So
there we go.
first and foremost, let's kind of talk about the deal as a whole. So where you're out in Utah, kind of the Salt Lake area, correct?
Yeah, so northern Utah area, so based kind of out of Salt Lake. I live about 20 minutes north of that, up in Davis County. So,
all right, and tell me about the deal. First of all, how'd you find the deal?
Kind of just driving for dollars, calling Zillow leads and things like that. Reached out to him. I got some notes here, so I'm gonna be looking down from time to time.
Fantastic.
So, my memory's not the best as it used to be. All these things I got going on. Let's see here. So the deal started out as an ELP back in August of 2019.
Okay.
Met with the guy. His name's David. He's been phenomenal. He's actually kind of transitioned now into a very good friend, personal friend. And
no kidding.
The way
That's
that
awesome.
way that we closed out this deal and the amount of money that he made, he wants to see about investing it into future deals and fix and flips, things like that, should it come up. So
fantastic.
Great guy. He's been ultra patient, as there were some highs and some low lows with this deal we'll get into.
So you call them driving for dollars, calling on offline leads, and your initial approach is the ELP, and I think you end up putting a deal together with him in that capacity, correct?
Yep, correct. Okay. So I went and met him out at his house. So he actually had his house for sale by owner at the time. And so came across him. I can't remember if it was online or driving for dollars, and he just had a for sale by owner sign out front. I was doing a lot of that back then, just driving for dollars, still do it to this day. But anyways, called him, kind of gave him the pitch over the phone. He says, it sounds intriguing. Come on out to the house and let's talk more. And so brought out the, agreement for deed and all the doc sets that we have, explained the program to him, how it would work. And it made sense to him. He's like, I'm not really in a big rush to sell the house. I clearly am trying to sell it on my own to maximize profit. And the way that you're proposing this works, I get some money down. I get to cash flow every month. Sounds like a win-win. I have places I can go. I got a trailer. I want to buy some land up in Park City and just live there. Sweet. Perfect. Sounds fantastic. Great. All right. I got that authorized and locked up, and started the marketing on it.
Okay. And found a buyer. Okay.
Shouldn't have been the buyer.
So say that again. Shouldn't have found the buyer. Is that what you said?
I found the buyer, but I found the wrong buyer. She ultimately should not have been. Hindsight being 2020, as it is with all things in life.
Sure.
She was not the right fit for our program, nor even home ownership in general. Took about 6 months.
Why do you say that?
Yeah. So this I won't name names in case she ever comes across this. Right, I mean, odds are she's going to know my face and know what we're talking about here. Anyways, but so she had been a renter her whole life. She's our terrible threes, 500 credit score, delinquencies, $500 down, wanting all the red flags in all the right places that I just ignored. Being fresh into the pink game and real estate in general, didn't listen to my better judgments in advisors in life and decided to go for it.
But that's how you learn sometimes. And
that's how you learn. Exactly. All of this is a learning experience and a very much needed one. And I'm a big proponent of that. Just ready, fire, aim, just get it done and learn and move on.
And by the way, not trying to steal any thunder, but if you fast forward to the very end of the deal, it worked out really well. So maybe part of this ultimately, panned out for the better. So she shows up. So she shows up. You obviously do marketing. You're fielding calls. She shows up. Maybe the first one to show up with a check and says, "Look, I want this. This is mine." And course, you're trying to get a sale. So you're looking for the good. Unfortunately, you had some red flags. So she shows up. How much did she put down up front, Riley?
So let's backtrack just a little bit more with the underwriting of her. And this is going to kind of involve Teresa as well that we've been using. I'm not sure if you want me to touch on that too much with this, but I can go into it.
Yeah, I
Do you
guess
want me
probably
to?
I'd say high level
Okay.
yeah, I think high level would be good.
Okay, sounds good. So this particular ELP buyer, she was working two jobs, both part-time jobs. She was going to have her father, who was retired, as part of the deal as well, being underwritten for his income, which was all Social Security based. And then she was married, but her husband is undocumented. And so we couldn't use his income, even though it seemed pretty substantial, to the sum of about $9,000 a month, which was incredible for what I feel like an undocumented worker be able to make. That's phenomenal money. And so, she kind of assured us like, yeah, even though we can't use my husband on all the underwriting for the documentation, we have his financial support. So we'll be able to afford this $2,600 a month payment that we had entered into with her. And so looking at all of her documents, like, yeah, her credit score is in the low fives, developed the roadmap to success and home ownership for her. It's going to take her a year. But she didn't have any money down. What she had was a pending lawsuit that I intervened on, that she was getting settlements from, to about the sum of $25,000. And that's what she was going to use through a series of phone calls and negotiations and things like that, to really light a fire under her attorney to get this thing done, closed, so he could get paid as well, because it was one of those attorneys that don't get paid until they close out a settlement and they get a hefty fee. Come to find out that she wasn't going to keep all that $25,000 that she thought she was going to. It was really closer to about $15,000. That attorney was getting 10 of that one, as well as subsequent another pending lawsuit that she was going to collect on.
So, by the way, there's a handful of red flags I'm already seeing. I can see what.
Yes. You see now where this road is heading, and it gets much worse.
Okay. Probably won't spend too much time on it, but I can see where you're going. Keep going, please.
So kind of get everything done and get that money a week or two before our soft close, which is what we call our initial ELP closing, because they don't take home ownership. They don't take title to the deed until they get their final financing in place, as you know, but whoever may be watching this doesn't.
Yeah, thank you.
So we call that the soft close. She comes to the table with the $2,600 a month payment up front, the $500 closing fee. And at the time, with everything she had going on in her life, she only had $7,000 to put down of that 15. She needed to allocate some other things to other places. And so that's what actually went to my seller, was the $7,000 up front. I didn't collect any of that. And so then she moved in, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying at first. She had been a renter her entire life. And she's well into her probably late 30s, early 40s. And so I then became, in her mind, the landlord. And so even though we'd put a home warranty in place, she was calling me with every little nitpicky item. The jetted tub isn't bubbling. The switch in the master bedroom isn't turning on the fan, and it's turning on the fan and light at the same time. How do I get that to not do that? And the irrigation system isn't working properly. And so there was a number of things I went out there to help with. And then other times I said, you need to use the home warranty company that we put in place. There's a small deductible for a number of these items. You pay that, they come out, they fix it. We treat you like a homeowner. We're not here to babysit you and hold your hand. And so as things progressed, she got a little bit better about just kind of handling things herself, or so I thought. We're trickling down about the 6-month mark. She had been late on almost every single monthly payment. What had happened in her personal life is she got COVID, lost one of her other part-time jobs, and her father died. So Social Security gone, extra income gone, sick. And then her personal life with her husband, not great, to the point where he had moved in more undocumented workers into the home that were his family, friends, and co-workers. And so she didn't have much say, the true ELP buyer here. He wasn't helping out with income. The house was getting distressed in many ways. And anyway, so as things move on, I kind of interject and I say, hey, so how are you doing on your roadmap to home ownership? You know, have you been doing the things that, you know, we've been outlining for you to get your credit repaired? And she had some student loans in delinquency that she was supposed to get out and raise her. So she assured me, yeah, doing all these things. We get to about the 1 year mark, and it's seemingly that she is not going to be able to, because she was also supposed to put down, out of that $15,000 down payment, $25,000 total. She'd only put down $7,000. I collected $8,000 about a month later. So for a total of $15,000, she owed another $10,000. That never came to fruition. And so, yeah, things were just not looking well for this deal. She was getting to the point where she wouldn't let me into the house, even with proper legal notice, 24 hours notice, to come and see her. She'd always meet me outside. You'd hear dogs barking inside. She told us up front that she had one dog at the soft close that was going to be living there with her 3 kids, her and her husband. Come to find out, she has 5 dogs, a cat, her 3 kids, another friend and her kid, her husband, and 2 undocumented brothers living in the property. So for a total of 12 people and 6 animals.
Wow. It does get, the plot does thicken, doesn't it?
The plot thickens to really bad.
Okay.
But luckily during this whole time, I've been keeping in touch with the seller. We've been developing a great relationship. He knows me, likes me, trusts me. And that is the quintessential thing from this discussion I wanted to take away with you today, is building that rapport and relationship with the seller is so vital, I think, because it panned out for the best ultimately here, which is what we're about to transition into. So we get to about the 1 year mark, and let's see. I follow up with Teresa, who's helped us develop the roadmap to homeownership. She has a number of documented calls with this ELP buyer, and come to find out her credit's worse. She never got the student loans out of delinquency, and she would need, at a minimum, if she really got her butt into gear, another 6 to 8 months. And at that point, you know, the seller was supposed to get another chunk of money from the down payment. Wasn't receiving that. He was cash flowing very nicely. We could touch on that in a little bit as well. But seemingly he's like, the market's getting so hot, Riley, from when we had entered into this agreement back in 2019 to fast forward middle of 2021, May of 2021, when her 1 year mark was up. He's like, I don't want to extend it out another 6 to 8 months. I just want to sell this thing and move on. I want to allocate my money different places and things like that while the market's so hot. Like, that's perfectly understandable and reasonable. I would do the same thing in your shoes. And so in order to get her out, and with the new COVID era that we were in, with the moratorium and everything, to not jump through any of those hoops, talking with Coach Rob, we opted for a cash for keys kind of situation. And so ultimately ended up paying her about $2,400 to leave the house.
A wise move.
Yeah. And so that ultimately worked. It took a little bit longer than the deadline I had given her. But that was because she had no support. Her one friend and kid that were living there moved out once they heard that they were getting kicked out. Her husband, absolutely no help. So it was just her, and she'd picked up another part-time job to try and help out. She's a wonderful lady, but not the right setup ultimately to be a buyer.
I'd say that's what it sounds like. Doesn't sound like a bad person, just has a lot of bad things going on in her life. Or
she had a series of very unfortunate events happen to her. And it's unfortunate. I tried to help her out as much as I could. And there's a number of things we could go into of how I helped, but that's neither here nor there.
But it shows your heart. And I'd like to think it shows a good representation of the company, because that's how we all want to be as well.
Exactly. So, ultimately get her out, and then I get to enter the house, and I'll send you the video that I took of my walkthrough. Let
me guess, you opened the door and it smelled.
you got punched in the face by Mike Tyson pet smell. It was awful. I've smelt some bad pet houses in my day. The very first property I ever purchased was a hoarder lady cat house where she died in the property, and that was a bad one. Anyways, so I walked through this house and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. The landscaping is completely overgrown. The backyard has holes dug everywhere from the dogs. There's pee and poop all over the carpets and floor from the dogs. The counters and everything that you could possibly touch is just grimy. Garages are still, because this property had a detached 2-car, attached 2-car, and about a full RV and another spot for an RV. So had tons of parking. The garage was full of all of their junk still. It was just an absolute mess and disaster.
So what happened next?
So what happened next is I called up the seller and I said, hey, so is your intention to still sell the property? And he said, yes. I said, okay, perfect. So we actually have another strategy that we can use and implement. Essentially what happens is you and I partner. I can take it out to the market and sell it to a retail buyer rather than another lease purchase. And at that point, the market had appreciated so much, we entered into an agreement that was $100,000 more than our original strike price ELP. Yes, 100,000. Wow. And so I was like, and then if I can get enough of a spread, I will cover closing costs and real estate fees. So this is your net walk away. This is what you walk away with. He said, perfect. Let's do it, Riley. And so, okay, awesome. There's a few things that need to happen to the property due to the ELP buyer. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to get the property back into market ready condition, pay for the photos, pay for all the marketing, handle all the walkthroughs, showings, all the documents. You get to just sit back. Perfect. Sounds great. So it took, I think, about 6 weeks between some sweat equity of myself as well as hiring people out. Ultimately, I had to tear out all the carpet and pad, paint the subfloor with kills. I had got the carpets professionally cleaned twice by people who said they could get the pet smell out. They could not get that pet smell out. So we ultimately had to get the carpet pad removed, paint the floors with kills, new carpet pad put down, get all the flooring professionally steamed and cleaned and, pine salt, all that stuff to get the smell out. I hired a professional cleaning company. They had 5 ladies. It took them a week to clean this house. And they said, I don't think one time in the last year they cleaned this house once. And so it took them a long time. That was a big bill. Then we had to change, they punched holes in doors and drywall. They tore down towel racks, tore down mirrors in the bathroom. There was a leak that they never got fixed from the kitchen sink that had dripped down to the basement, and the basement had a drop ceiling with the tile ceiling, and those were bubbling from very noticeable water damage. We had to get a number of blinds and closet doors replaced. I mean, it's just a whole gambit of things to get this house back into market condition. All the landscaping had to be trimmed up, de-weeded, mowed, all that, new mulch, things like that. So we spent about $15,000 to get the house back into market condition to get it sold. But the numbers made sense to do this between what the new strike price was and what we think we could sell it for based off of the comps. We were at a new strike price with him of $489, and we thought we could sell it for about $599. So between paying for real estate commissions, which I used a flat fee broker to get it on the MLS, but I knew I'd have to pay for the buyer's agent commission if that were the case, if a buyer's agent came to the table, closing costs, and then paying back our investment into the sweat equity to get the house back into the property, get the house back into market condition. It still made for a nice payday. And so we decided to list it at, I think $589.9 initially to get it back onto the market at $589.9 on the MLS, as well as some guerrilla marketing tactics like Facebook Marketplace, KSLs, a local classifieds like Craigslist out here in Utah. That's bigger than Craigslist. as well as Craigslist. And so it took, we'll see. So we had that on the market for about a week at 589.9. Not a whole lot of interest. The property wasn't fixed up as much as other properties selling for in that condition. And then also the property location being on a major road, major dual lane, so 4 lanes total road, was a big inhibitor that I knew was going to be the case, but still given the market, I figured we'd push it and try for tip top dollar. And so then we did price reduction down to, I think, 569.9 ultimately. Let's see what my notes are. Okay, so 550.
Okay.
So that's so June. Yeah, so back in June we had it drop down to 550 ultimately. I think we did 2 price reductions. And at that point, we did an open house and a couple different strategies of, no showings until open house. We gave that a week at the new reduced price. And that did really well. There was quite a few foot traffic through that day. It was a Saturday. And then ultimately on that subsequent day, we got a full price offer at the 550 mark, 30-day close, VA loan, and what were we supposed to pay? I think for a home warranty. So it really not many concessions.
Okay.
So that worked out well. So we accepted that. And then felt not necessarily a little bit guilty about the potential profit here. So between 550 and then the 489, it's about $75,000 difference, I think, ultimately. Well, actually, I need to take one more step back. So our original, I have my note here, original new strike price on the FSBO flip method here was $425. So we've gone up about $50,000 with the seller rather than $100.
Okay.
And so with that profit potential, felt that he was owed a little bit more for his patience, being as awesome as he was. I'm not an overly greedy person, as much as I'd like to make, upwards of $50,000. I felt a little bit guilty about that. So we entered into a new strike price with him at $489. So he'd make an extra, was that almost $50,000? No. The 480. Okay, that's what it was. So we went up $19,000. So strike price with him 480, re-strike price with him 489. So $9,000 is what we came up. And then a series of other hoops to jump through emerged. So even though we had an agreement for deed in place with the new strike price, I had a notice of interest filed at the county recorder documenting all of my equity position in the property as we're instructed as the PINK model emulates. The VA loan, I'm not sure who they'd be. I guess their side of title on the VA loan side did not like that my name was the only name on the purchase agreement, even though the county recorder only showed the seller's name. If you would have looked at the county recorder's filings, you'd see that, yes, Little Pink Houses of Utah has a recorded agreement for deed interest in the property. They did not like that. They said, we will pull this offer. We are not going to fund this deal unless the purchase agreement reads David and Little Pink Houses of Utah. And the county recorder shows Little Pink Houses is on title. And so, So what I ended up having to do, my title agent that I use out here in Utah for all of my real estate deals is phenomenal. She's like, well, let's just do this. Let's just get the seller to quit claim deed you onto the property. And then you don't even have to do a double close, because essentially we were going to have to do a double close on this property. I was going to bring in transactional funding, pay a fee on that, all of that. So by quit claim deeding, we avoided the double close need. And luckily I'd already been so transparent with the seller, and he knows me, likes me, trusts me. And since I'd already been transparent and upfront with him, it wasn't a surprise when I ended up walking away with, I think $40,000, $45,000 after paying closing costs, real estate commissions, and some of the other concessions that were in there. The house staging that I had done to help with the marketing. And so we got that done, and that was the final hoop to jump through. And that's kind of the culmination of this epic tale between ELP to FSBO flip, 2 years in the making. deal.
It is pretty epic. I will say that. So
Yes.
very good. Well, yeah, avoiding double close, you means you don't have to pay closing costs once.
Yeah.
But I loved your takeaway right kind of in the middle of the call. That was kind of the quintessential is what you had called it. And that is the fact that you were, took the time to build a rapport, a relationship.
Yeah.
There was an element of trust, an element of liking you, and that look at how that served you. And it's
Yeah.
business is so many things, and so often it's just easy to get caught up in trying to max your profit, and when you skip over some of the basics about rapport and relationship building, it can affect you in the long run. So
Yeah.
well, Riley,
So
go ahead, buddy.
last thing I'll touch on really quick. I have all the kind of numbers here that will be beneficial for sellers to keep in mind if they watch this video or even a testimonial, things like that. But he ended up walking away making $87,700 more working with us over the course of 2 years than he would had just selling his property on his own back in 2019.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of
It's a
money.
lot of money. So that's why he was a very happy guy.
Yeah, for sure. And now he may even be an investor of yours.
Exactly. So yeah, so
Yeah.
now he'll kind of be a private money source for me.
It's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, kudos to you for being tenacious, for hanging tough,
Yeah.
and certainly dealing with more of a renter than a buyer and some of the moving
Yes.
parts with that. So, well, I understand the fact that there were some moving parts here now that you've explained it, and again, I want to commend you, and of course look at the end result. So. That's a hell of a profit margin. So very good, man. Very good. Well, Riley, as I said up front before we even started recording, man, I think you're a rock star. We love having you as part of our family, and obviously, expecting a lot of more big things from you to come. So keep up the good work, my friend.
Appreciate it.
All right,
And
man.
then if you want to, we can talk later about some other stuff I got going on and some thoughts I have.
Yeah. Let me just say one thing. Because before we stop recording, you had told me you had hooked into a potential portfolio deals where you're looking at a pretty big profit. Can you give me maybe 2 minutes on that?
Sure. Yeah. So I've kind of partnered out here in Utah with his name's Jeff. He runs the Utah RIA, so the Real Estate Investing Association. And he and I have been doing a lot of marketing for just wholesale, but as well as some other stuff. And so I came across a seller in Oklahoma City who has a 191 unit apartment complex. It's broken up between 3 different buildings. One of them completely vacant. So of those 191 units, only 16 are currently rented.
Wow.
So it's very distressed property, but he wants 3.1 million for all of it. And based off of all the rent reports and everything, the cap rate on it stabilized at 6.5 million, which is what the rehab plus purchase price would be. It's at about 19% cap rate. So really great return. And what we're going to try and do is either assign it or get ourselves a check out of it, as well as a small equity position by wholesaling it.
Very good.
And so we're going to shoot for about 400,000 on that one. The same seller has another more stabilized already apartment complex they'd be willing to sell also in Oklahoma City. And that one's at 5.3 million, and we'll probably take that one down ourselves.
Very good. Very good. I love it, man. Got big plans, and you're making them happen. So, well, I would again just say thank you for spending a few minutes and breaking that down. Not every deal is pretty, but when you stick to them, they can be lucrative. And so, how old are you right now?
29. I'll be 30 in February, and yeah, so just this year, actually, for my birthday, I bought a sub 2 out in Elko, Nevada. That is a rental right now. Makes me $400 a month.
Very good. And how'd you find it?
Facebook. So I have some Facebook groups where I'll post things like, hey, is anybody wanting to sell their house that's tried and hasn't been able to for one reason or another? One lady raised her hand. She said, yeah, me actually. I tried to sell it. I actually have a rental property in Elko right now with a tenant in it. I tried to sell it about a year ago. And the prior tenants to this new one didn't like that and they left. And then I was stuck with 2 mortgage payments that I couldn't pay. So I had to put another renter in there, and I've been too scared to put it on the market again in the event that this renter does the same thing and leaves me with the second mortgage. Me and my husband are trying to expand our business here, and we don't want to deal with this anymore.
Perfect.
I said, well, perfect. What are you asking for it? And I think they were asking like 135. And I said, sorry, those numbers just don't make sense, because I too would want it as a rental and I'd make no money. And so they said, okay, you have any other ideas? And I said, well, how much do you pay in your mortgage right now? And they said, oh, we pay about $850 a month. I said, well, how long have you had your mortgage? And they said, oh, we've had it for about 7 years. Said, okay. What's your interest rate? And got all that information. I said, well, what about this? What if I just gave you $12,000, just kind of your equity difference between what you owe and what you have and what the house is kind of worth to me? I gave you $12,000. You kept the mortgage in place. I get deed to the title. I handle everything. You guys get to just walk away with the $12,000. He said, that sounds great. Let's do that. So that's what we did.
Very good.
Gave $12,000. I'm the new title owner, me and my business. And yeah, we make $400 a month. And right now I'm actually trying to sell the property on market and get about $50,000 in equity out of it. Move on to the next one. And then right now I have a purchase agreement in the mail from a seller out in Kilgore, Texas. Same exact situation. Property's been vacant for 5 years while the owner lives in New York. He's very elderly, in mid 80s. His daughter's been helping us out because he's not technology savvy by any means, which is why the purchase agreement's in the mail right now to my house. But the house got heavily vandalized while he was out, while it was vacant. He went to go file an insurance claim. Insurance is like, nope, sorry, not going to help you. And so he's like, I don't have the money to restore it. It won't sell for anything. I owe too much on what the mortgage is versus what it would sell for. And I said, well, how about this? Leave the mortgage in place. I'll take over the headache. I'll fix it up, and then we'll just sell it or keep it as a rental. He said, done. I don't want this headache. So no money down, sub 2 in the works right now.
Love it, man. Love it. Riley, you're an animal, man. I love it. I love it. So you're getting me inspired over here, buddy. Congrats. Keep up the good work, Riley. And I'll looking forward to the next one.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Talk soon.
All right, buddy.